Welcome to Kitchen Chat. This is where we sample the talents of the most notorious chefs, home cooks, foodies, and celebrities that sizzle. Get ready for a culinary journey that you won't find anywhere else. Here's the host of Kitchen Chat, Margaret McSweeney.
Hello, dear foodie friends, and welcome to Kitchen Chat. This is your host, Margaret McSweeney, and I'm so glad you are joining me on this delicious journey. Today, let's travel to New York City and have a kitchen chat with one of America's most respected and celebrated restaurateurs, Drew Nieporent. Since age 29, Drew has opened 40 restaurants, including his groundbreaking first restaurant, Margaret, which earned 3 stars from the New York Times for decades. Drew has won multiple James Beard Awards. And on a personal note, Drew is one of the kindest people in this industry. We met 10 years ago at the International Association of Culinary Professionals Conference in Washington, D.C. And we had a kitchen chat a few years ago. His new book, I'm Not Trying to Be Difficult, Stories from the Restaurant Trenches, spotlighting incredible culinary history, and of course, he shares stories about launching Nobu with his friend and business partner, Robert De Niro. At age 17, Drew took his first restaurant job at McDonald's in Manhattan. He writes in the book, "As a kid who wanted to run restaurants, I considered McDonald's a fertile training ground." Let's welcome Drew Nieporent to Kitchen Chat as he shares his stories.
A little bit about my story is that my early years and the experiences and what they led to in later years, going life going full circle, really quite amazing. Today, for the last 12 years, I do the hamburgers at Madison Square Garden. And the hamburger at Madison Square Garden is unbelievable. But Madison Square Garden is, it's the world's greatest arena, and it really is. To be able to be a part of that for 12 years is kind of amazing. So all my job experiences, which are cataloged in the book, they were like proving grounds, and it gave me professional knowledge, and it gave me confidence in the knowledge. In New York, I went to work at Maxwell Spawn Tavern on the Green. These were amazing restaurants.
Yes.
Tavern in the middle of Central Park is still there. Not quite the same, but because they had tore it down and then rebuilt it. But the tavern that I worked at was just, it was stunning. And we would serve as many as 3,000 people on a Mother's Day, for instance, or 1,500 brunches. And eventually I had to leave Tavern on the Green. I went to work at French restaurants, American guy. That was also a breakthrough because I didn't speak fluent French. Yes. I worked at La Grenouille, Le Périgord, Le Régence, La Réserve. Worked with Daniel Boulud. So all these great experiences. And then I ran the New York Marathon in 1983. Jogging in New York, I came across a location in Lower Manhattan, Tribeca, and I could afford the rent, and I signed the lease. And that was my breakthrough moment of opening Margaret with David Boulay, who was an incredible chef, in 1985, April of 1985. And that, I charged $16 for 3 courses. And so when we got 3 stars, I could have filled Shea Stadium. It was like stormed the Bastille. It was unbelievable. It was out-of-body experience. And then, we defended and preserved those 3 stars for 22 years.
How many restaurants have that history?
Nobody. I mean, nobody really has that history. That's why I wanted to write the book, because the book for me, people kind of know that I tell a lot of stories. So the book was a chance for me to explain things. I wrote the book with Jamie Feldmore.
One of the many fascinating stories that Drew shares in his book is about his friendship with Robert De Niro and how Nobu began.
Basically what happened was that Robert De Niro, after I got 3 stars at Margaret, came to have dinner, and his girlfriend, very vivacious, very outspoken, Tookie is her name. She goes, "Bob wants to know if you'd like to open another restaurant in Tribeca." And I said, "Are you talking to me? Because there ain't nobody else here." Bob then proposed. He was like, he took me to look at the space where we would put Tribeca. It was an incredible space. And he was like, I know this guy in L.A., Nobu Matsuisa. And I'm like, I don't say this, but I'm thinking, Bob, this guy's Japanese. I know him too, because Deborah Ponzak, our chef at Morrissey, and Nobu, one year were honored by Food and Wine magazine as the 10 best chefs Food and Wine. That's been an ongoing program for almost 40 years. But Nobu came, and so Bob, in a moment of bad casting, was thinking of Nobu for the Tribeca Grill, which was not going to happen. But Nobu himself went, maybe one day I opened small sushi bar with you. So I saw the friendship, I saw the kinship, and I made it happen.
Yeah.
So years later, here's Tribeca on this corner, right up the block. The space became available. I signed the lease. And now you're going to have to read the book because there's a great story inside there. But
absolutely.
Nobu essentially didn't necessarily agree right away to the first deal. But today, there are 56 Nobus around the world. He's worth a bundle of money. And it's probably the most successful restaurant idea of the last 30 years. So.
And
I was the one that
happen.
made it happen, actually. There's no question about it. I will die on my tombstone. I'll say, Drew, he brought Japanese food to 4 Americans, because there was Japanese food here, but it was only for the very, first of all, they marketed only to the Japanese.
Right.
So I made it accessible. So the whole thing, has gone on, some with, some without me. But it's a great success story, and I'm happy still to be a part of it.
When I asked Drew about who has inspired him in this industry, you might be surprised at one of his answers. It's a fun story.
One day, when I was a student at Cornell, he said, Harlan Sanders is coming to the campus. I was like, are you serious? No. So he checked in. He stayed at the Statler, which is literally attached to the hotel school. So I knocked on his door. I found out where he was staying. I knocked on his door. He let us in. He chatted with us. And I said, thank you. I don't know what we talked about. I said, thank you for meeting with us. He said, son, with boys like you, America's got nothing to worry about. So that was phenomenal. But I patterned my career really after a guy named Joseph Baum, who also went to Cornell, but he went in the 40s. But he was the owner of Windows on the World, Rainbow Room, and also the president of Restaurant Associates. Mm-hmm. And he was a thinker, conceptualized many ideas. So it was always in my career path that I would do more than one restaurant. That I did 40 was opportunity, thank goodness. But that's kind of a crazy enough. So here you have a chronology, an appendix, if you will. Very important to me to list all the restaurants. And list all the restaurants with the chefs and the pastry chefs. And because when I turned 50, I sent out an invitation to my 50th birthday, which was like an accordion invitation with all the restaurants and all the chefs. And then on the other side was all the front house staff and sommeliers. And people really, that was very important to the people who worked in these restaurants. It was seminal. So Joseph Baum, Rich Melman in Chicago. You're from Chicago.
Less entertaining.
He's phenomenal because he's fearless, and he opened so many good restaurants in Chicago that I never ever felt the need to open something in Chicago. But I sort of vowed that I would never compete with Richard Melman. So and those are the ones I kind of like pattern my career after.
Next, Drew shares insights on his approach to being a successful restaurateur.
I approach every restaurant like a director of a movie. You have the script, the chef's your lead actor, and you have the idea, but you as the director, you have to form everything. You have the lighting and the design and the actors front of the house and back of the house, and everything has to blend. And then it's your eye all the time, tweaking everything, making it in the vision that you see. Every little thing, the restaurateur, if the restaurateur knows what he's talking about, will come out right.
Drew and Julia Child were friends. Next, Drew shares 2 fun stories about Julia.
Well, this is very funny. Julia Child interviewed me And actually, that didn't make the book. It should have, because Julia Child interviewed me for. It was called In Food Today on the TV Food Network. They used to have a show. It's like a news show about food, and they actually, Julia Child is interviewing me. And one of the interesting stories about that was that at the very end they said, "Well, we have to get beauty shots." And a beauty shot is when the camera comes from here and it shoots you, and then one from behind you shoots me. So when the camera is from here on Julia Child, I swear to you, she does this. She starts to flirt with me. Like her eyelashes were flickering, and then she did this. She actually pouted. So I have this, believe it or not. But then I have actually I spent time at her home in Cambridge, and she came to Nobu also. But another quick story is one night I had a restaurant called the Berkeley Bar and Grill in the Sony building, and we had a party that night for a movie that was going to come out called Jacob the Liar. It was a Holocaust movie. So she's eating with Emerald. She never met Emerald, Julia Child, but they got along famously. And Emerald's a wonderful person. So, but it was getting late, and the party was about to start, and they were still sitting there. So I had to get them up, and I went over to the table. I said, "Oh, no, we'll leave." And just as they were getting up, Robin Williams, who was in Jacob the Liar, Robin Williams comes in, and he's a foodie. Robin was my partner in Rubicon in San Francisco. And Robin sees Julia Child, and he's like in awe, and Emerald. And as Julia leaves with Emerald, she looks at Emerald and she goes, "Who was that man?" About Robin Williams. So, but Julia was, the movie Julia and Julia was wonderful, and she was a special person. I'm not afraid to retire, but I'm not retired. In other words, I don't sit at home. I thank God I read books. Yeah. So I've read a lot of great books. And buy books, but I have a great life.
Drew, thank you so much.
Good to see you again.
Thank you, Drew, for this very special kitchen chat. For more exciting insights into Drew's legendary career as a restaurateur, make sure you pick up a copy of his book, I'm Not Trying to Be Difficult, Stories from the Restaurant Trenches, written with Jamie Feldmar. It's a great gift for yourself and for someone who loves dining out. And thank you, dear foodie friends, for being a part of this delicious journey. And always remember to take a moment and savor the day.